Hey guys, this is Devin back with the Zenith Seekers podcast here with Marquis for episode 2 of our podcast. Mark, you want
Hi,
to introduce yourself?
I'm Marquis, also part of Zenith Seekers, and I was looking forward to this next episode.
Yeah, today we wanted to talk about hope, which is something very, very important and crucial to both of us. We wanted to talk about the deeper meanings of the word because we feel like often it can be used as such a buzzword or reduced to being just something um people don't feel the deeper meaning and understanding of. Um, and you're told to be hopeful, and it's often just glazed over. It's overlooked because,
Yeah, I think a lot of power, when it comes to a lot of words, are lost in society because they are just sort of given in such a surface level, or even less than that, but a paper thin, empty way. And it's so much more than that. It's so much deeper than that for a lot of things. But we wanted to start off with hope because as for me, I really wanted to dismantle this very toxic illusion of it being a quote unquote hopeless romantic, and how you should never be hopeless, even though it may sound like frivolous or silly or whatever when you say it. First of all, nothing like that should ever be frivolous. It should be taken seriously. Everything about your huge and important decisions in your life should be taken seriously. Um, and the words that surround them, the words that you use to describe yourself, to talk about yourself, either within yourself or interpersonally with someone else, they all need to be taken seriously, and they all need to be um, given more weight. So we wanted to talk about the deeper meanings as about hope. But yeah.
yeah. So I guess to start off, we can each talk about um, I'm sure it's going to be very similar between us. I mean, we talked about it before ad nauseum. So, but what does it mean on a deeper level for each of us?
Hmm.
I think to me, when I was encountering my own need for hope deep within my heart, or on my spiritual journey uh, of self love and sort of mastering life, um, I just felt frozen. Like I could not really move existentially. Um, I think on some level, I was working on things such as faith and a sense of trust. Um, with the world, on a spiritual level. And to me, hope kind of feels like the engine to move your faith forward in life. It is like the motivation to faithfully engage life, to pursue your dreams, pursue your ambition, pursue whatever it is, just to go out and even just enjoy your life, to enjoy the moment. You're always living hopefully, full of hope, like this knowing that everything that you do is filled with purpose is a word that really comes to mind for me. Just feeling purposeful in all that I do, all that I'm um moving in, uh and to not have that sense of frozen lack of motivation, lack of insight into a hopefulness for my dreams being fulfilled, whether that be romantically speaking, for love, meeting someone who I could uh, have a true and meaningful connection with. Hopeful in finishing my writings and my creative works that I want to do. Uh, just hopeful that I will reach a state of clarity and peace in life. All those things come into hope where you actually feel like you're striving and moving towards something. You're not stuck and frozen. Even if you're feeling, you can be faithful in your own sort of domain in the sanctum of self, but um, I think hope is what connects and engages you to move forward, uh, for lack of better words. What about you, Mark?
For me, it's being such a a true dreamer and such a true lover. It's extremely important in a way that, as you're going down your path and you're understanding the powerful layers of what it means to truly adult. Obviously, it's not just about fiscal responsibility or something like that, but it's a responsibility you have to yourself and all of the different aspects and mechanisms of your beingness. You don't put those responsibilities on other people, but when we're younger, we don't, we're very codependent on to the external and to the world to give us things. And so, my experience of hope has been this experience of wanting, and I think a lot of true lovers go through this. I think a lot of romantic people, true romantics go through this, but just people who can search for relationships in general can outsource their hope. They can try to find it in other people, find it in other things, and make it about someone else, rather than understanding that they are their own infinite font of hope themselves. Hope is a power that allows you to dream, it allows you to wish, it allows you to wonder, it allows you to breathe. And while I guess to some people that might sound hyperbolic, you can just sort of switch it around and talk about how it feels when you feel hopeless. When you feel hopeless, you feel airless, you can't breathe, and your mind doesn't even begin to wonder about anything. There's no sense of dreams or wish. You just have to grind. You just have to go from moment to moment. To me, hope is like this ocean of light that just flows through me and allows me to pursue whatever it is I want to do, whether it is something creative, whether it's something I want to do artistically, or whether it's something romantic. And I noticed that, um, in my past relationships, that it was like, the moment I, perhaps when I was pursuing someone, or perhaps when I was in a relationship, that it would shift to me feeling very hopeful, like just this quite a limitless font of hope for the future, and this um, belief in just possibility of the things we could do and the things and all of that. But what about when I'm just by myself? What about when I'm just by my lonesome? What about when I'm not in a relationship? Um, how am I feeling within myself? And this is the issue with outsourcing hope, is that if you're not primary, which is something that we'll talk about in every podcast about the importance of being primary, if you're not primary in your sense of hope, you're not your own primary source, and you stop being codependent on other people and other things to give you hope. If you don't do that, then when those things aren't around, life is just going to feel very difficult. It's going to feel much more difficult than it would if you had that source within yourself. And it's similarly to how you may have felt, especially in the initial aspects of past relationships, where you first start out and you are feeling your light expressing itself, you're feeling your sense of hope shining, and things feel easier automatically. But that feeling is something that's already in you. You don't need something in the external to um for you to feel that great sense of hope. And so it's an important thing in life to just be able to breathe in general. There's so many things in the external that try to suffocate us, and um when we are constantly doing that, it feels like being in a desert. It feels like hopelessness feels like we're in a desert, and the idea of hope just feels like a mirage. It feels like an illusion. And so then hope starts to feel like a fallacy. It feels ridiculous. It feels stupid. And it's not any of those things, but I think for me, dealing with that sense of hopelessness, and seeing illusions and whatnot with other people, it's like my eyes were closed, because to in order to essentially believe in a false hope instead of always looking at truth and reality, um, and never falling into any sort of pits of delusion. That's where to have true hope is a big deal, and hope. and freedom, and just how it allows my life to breathe, how it allows my thoughts to move, and to express and to expand, rather than hopelessness and fatalism that just corrodes you and locks you away more and more and more, and then not having that battle, and not making that battle against hopelessness someone else's responsibility. It's my own personal
Right.
responsibility, and that's a huge thing
It's
to.
deeply self-referential. I think that's
It
where a lot of
is.
things get mixed up because it's easy to, especially with those who have sensitive eyes, such as us, and others like us who have these very just pulsating cores that we're trying to have touch life and feel embraced in our existence at all times and to feel, just to touch life, to touch ground.
Well, also just
And
trying to understand that core. But yeah, continue.
absolutely, yes, yes, absolutely. And you can get locked into, or you can get lost in the sensitivity of your eyes and all that you're seeing around, and that bit by bit, it's like the minutia of what we're seeing can be like little beads of that fatalism that sort of like accrue, like little gathering dirt and muck, and the bog starts to fill your eyes, and you're kind of like becoming unconsciously hopeless without even knowing, and you're fighting so hard. And I think that's where that sense of false hope comes from. Like you're trying so hard to keep yourself afloat, like fighting the gravity against your wings to plummet into the muck. Um to keep yourself afloat in that sense of false hope, or strength in that false hope, but it's not lasting, it's not truly beaming, it's not truly in your blood, it's not self-referential. um
And it takes
and trust
time
me,
and
I figured
strength
it
to
out.
heal from that perspective.
Yes, yes, it does. And yeah,
Yeah.
and understand, I think a lot of it is understanding, like understanding your own sense of hopelessness. Like, what lies in your pits? What are you being hopeless about? Digging throughout the years of your life, and the things that you've accrued from disappointments, past relationships, familial things, career, even in a greater sense, just seeing the world, politics, and um, just a general sense of human nature that sort of bogs you down. You don't feel like a
Yeah,
hope
it creates more
for the
dissonance.
world. And you don't see other people catering to that. You see other people just sort of catering to the kind of nihilistic, hopeless bog, and kind of just watching out for their creature comforts or their power plays, or it's so much that you don't see a hope for what's true, your true values, deep
Yeah.
within. Um,
And that's the problem with, like I said, outsourcing hope is like you see so much nihilism, you see so much fatalism, you see so much toxicity, you see so much self sabotaging and all kinds of things in other people, um, as well as perhaps some issues you might have had within yourself, and yet you're still using the external to try to fuel you, to fill you up, to be the water or the nourishment that you need, and it can't be the primary source. It's not to say that nothing in the external can give you hope, nothing in the external can actually give you real light, because they it can, and it is real, while also still being quite rare, but it is a real thing. But you shouldn't be twiddling your thumbs in hopelessness until that happens. You have to be your own font of hope, for yourself, your primary font of hope within yourself. And I love what you were talking about in terms of engaging the hopelessness and just being honest about it. It goes into something that I think I'll bring up a lot, in these episodes, which is the nature of negative mantras, and how important it is to just say how you really feel. Don't say what's positive. If how you really feel is negative, then say that. Say that you feel hopeless. Say that you feel like you're never going to find love, or that you're never going to be happy, or that you're never going to have
exactly.
clarity, or that you're never going to, or that you feel unlovable, or that you feel like you're not beautiful, or I think it's
It always starts with
incredibly
blistering
important to say
honesty.
these things. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
you have to say these things, and for me, And of course, I've dealt with all of that negativity and needing to express those negative mantras in the past. But for me, what I was dealing with recently was just the feeling of the denial. It was like a denial of denial. Like I didn't realize that some part of my consciousness was just denying the things that I would really, really, really want, like the things that I'd really, really be hopeful for. And I don't mean like, oh, you're, I don't know, hopeful for a raise or hopeful for, I mean, you could be hopeful for that, absolutely. But, hopeful for things that don't go that deep. I'm talking about things that you are like, that you would never want to say out loud, uh, because it means so much to you on a deep level that it makes you sad. It makes you sad to even think about because it hasn't happened yet, or you haven't received it yet, and you haven't experienced it yet, whatever. And saying it out loud just kind of puts an emphasis on that reality. But no, I think that energetically, you're making it a priority. You're making it something that matters. You're taking it seriously. You're saying, no, this isn't just a frivolous hope. This isn't just something that that I am allowed to minimize. You should never minimize your hopes. You should never minimize what you want, like obviously this is always about true love, you know. So not minimizing what you hope for and what you want romantically. Not I mean, I say it all the time. I'm not compromising. This is not a compromise. This is the same thing I say about my own worth and my own value and the inherent worth and value within other people. It's not a debate or a discussion. It's not. So, something that you deeply hope for, which for me is, uh, I won't go into all of that, but just aspects of being truly honored, aspects of being, like deeply and purely and powerfully like loved and valued and all these things. It's a lot that I could say. I'm just gonna keep it simple, but not minimizing that, not taking that hope for granted or anything like that. It's like, no, this is a really deep, serious, and visceral spiritual hope that I feel in my blood. I feel it in my veins. I feel it in my heart, and I have my whole life. The only difference between now and then was that I didn't have the words for it. I didn't, as I said in the first episode, reaching into the abstract and giving it definition. I did not have the definition to say the myriad of things about who I really am and what I really want and what's going on and where I'm going and what I'm doing and why to all these things. And all of that goes into hope. It's like you hope is such a pure fueling force for all of that, for all that you feel, for all that you want, for all that you want to achieve and all that you want to go for. And of course it can be, romantically, as I'm always talking about that, but it's also uh creatively, it's for anything. It's for whatever deep, powerful, and potent ambition that you have in your life. Which I briefly want to talk about the nature of the word ambition and how I feel like that word can have a bit of a negative connotation to some people. But ambition is just whatever deeply, purely matters to you. I think for some people who are unconscious, they don't realize that their ambition is fueled by too many external things and not for who they really are. But for people like me, for people like Devin, we understand ambition is just it is from that space only. It is from the purest naked heart about what we truly want to do and what truly makes us happy and our true light and expression in the world. So yeah, I mean, and living that way and living with that hope and the limitlessness of creativity and creation and belief in moving forward, for the truth, for for truth, not nothing false, but for what's real, for what's true about what I really want, what's true in life, which means I'm not, projecting my hopes onto somebody and pretending like it fits and it makes sense when it obviously doesn't. No, I'm not doing any of that. And I mean, at the core of it, Well, part of the core of it, I should say, is, like I said, breathing versus suffocation within self, within relationships, and just within the moment to moment life. This existential freedom, this existential comfort, is so incredibly important. And it, as usual, it starts within.
Yeah, and it's as I've mentioned to you before, it is in direct relationship to your vitality, the direct vitality that you feel in your life. Hope is a crucial part of that. It's like the blood of your vitality in life to, like you said, to not feel that suffocation, to not feel frozen. It's just not. It just sort of amputates, or even what's the word I'm looking for when you like um staunch a wound, or I'm thinking about when you just burn the ends of like nerve endings to like just turn them numb. It's sort of like that. Like you're reaching out, but it's just these numb nerve endings um of your vitality trying to reach into life, and that's aspect
Uh-huh.
of hope. I wanted to speak on because I speak on what can really impede it. And I think a big one that often comes to mind is control. I think for a lot of people, you realize how much is out of your control, how much you can't change. If we're just talking interpersonally, you can't change so much within people. You can be a force of a supporting force. You can be a somewhat of a guiding light. You can be a space for someone to just unravel and sort of navigate themselves, or just vent to get that energy out, to just see, could gain greater perspective. But all in all, you have no control over anything besides your own actions, even in the external. And then this can even extend to a more macro sense of things, like you have no control over death, for instance. A person that's dying and moving on, you have no control of the death within like a living, breathing person. I mean that in a sense of um a person's subconscious death, like the death that's in their consciousness, their heart, in energy. um you can really only have agency over what's within yourself. And I think that that also sort of staunches the sense of hope in life. Like, what's the point if I can't, as we've talked about, like, if you're not, it sounds odd, but if you're not projecting, then how are you connecting in a sense? Like, how are you really touching and reaching out? How do you feel that sense of one to one and harmony, um, if you have no real control over even helping someone, because it always comes down to them being able to stoke that flame and that light within themselves, to build that within themselves. So, um, finding a relationship to hope that does not rely on control, because then I think that leans more into um, your hope being too directly related to a sense of uh, power or influence. Like you're giving your value too much to validation, to um
And you are
reciprocity.
your primary source of validation.
Exactly. And you're giving away um yeah, you're giving away your power, essentially, even if you're, like I said, just in a greater sense of we see so much we can't control, like something like death, and people eventually dying, and you say you have a hope for a loved one. I'm getting I'm getting so like out of all topic, but I think it's still kind of important to mention. Just something like that can really affect someone, because they're like, well, how do I have hope? Because it doesn't matter. Things are going to happen, in their due course anyway, whether I'm hopeful or not. So that is like, I just think that's a crucial thing to that can affect a lot of people in
I also
many
think
different
that
ways.
going into what you were saying about projection, I think that uh, it's important to clearly define what the alternative is, because, if you think that you can only connect via projection by just, projecting your wants and hopes and whatever onto other people. Now, of course, you might not be conscious about this. No one really is when they're initially doing that. But once you become conscious of it, really understanding how to dismantle that and what the alternative is and why it's better, I think is very important, which is instead of projection, you have resonance. Instead of projecting your hopes and whatnot, you become the center of your hope. And because you are the center of your own hope and essentially your frequency, and you are taking care of yourself and you're just connected to yourself in that way, the deeper your connection is with yourself, the deeper you can really connect with people who are of the same frequency. It's just a natural energy. When you're looking for someone to project onto, that is what you're energetically attracted to. You're energetically attracted to somebody that essentially fits that bill, not necessarily that they're right for you at all. Um, but if anything, it just ends up turning into just another life lesson. This is how one of the many examples of the sort of shocking revelation of, oh, you're not the person I thought you were, or um, just that shocking realization, the revelation of who someone really is versus what you projected onto them to be, and what you projected onto to them to act towards themselves, how they were going to act towards you, and all of that really isn't there when you actually have someone that you have a genuine resonance with, a genuine connection with, that reflects the beauty and purity of the connection you have with yourself. So if you're outsourcing your hope and everything, then you are creating a void, because really all the voids in you just want you. They really just want you. They don't want anybody else. They just want you. They need you. You are your own need. And when you allow those voids to guide you, you don't, there's no sense of quality control. There's no sense of really understanding what it means for someone to love you because you haven't fully loved yourself yet. So you're just kind of allowing anything in. Uh, and it kind of speaks to what I've talked about before of just like freedom is definition. It's not chaos, So it's quite chaotic to just say somebody, anybody give me hope, or somebody, anybody love me, or something like that. Like you're just doing that, and anybody who will give you attention, give you the time of day, is who you're like giving your like light and energy and essence and sense of freedom to. Like that's abhorrent, that's awful, but you're not fully conscious of that until I guess you've gotten some bruises in that regard. But afterwards, as you really start to become your greatest space, your safest space for yourself, and become that source of hope, the primary source of hope, then you start understanding, oh, okay, this person outside of me is also giving me light, and they're giving me beauty, and they're giving me, just hopeful energy and all of these things naturally, not because I want them to, not because I'm projecting it on them to or anything like that, but it's just a natural resonance with what I'm doing for myself. And that's what's best, is that you have something that actually resonates with the beauty and positivity and wonder and freedom that you are already giving to yourself. And it just expands upon what you're already doing rather than this person, this idea of a person being the sole source, the only reason that you're able to perhaps be as strong as you actually can be, or be as outgoing, or be as expressive, or be um uh as diligent about your personal healing, or perhaps your personal career, or whatever. Instead, you're not making yourself, your existence, and in this case, for this particular episode, your sense of hope, secondary to the world. You're not making it secondary to the external. You're not making it secondary to a relationship, or just anybody. Whether, and that can be your mom, your dad. They're not your primary source. It doesn't matter. You are always your primary source for everything, whether that be validation, self love, self value, self worth, hope. all these things. And the whole point of all of this is to make sure that you don't have this relationship with hope where you start to think that it is just a delusion. It's just a pit of delusions.
Just a
Uh,
platitude, just a
exactly. It's just a platitude. It's
throwaway word.
just no. You have to really start to be primary and allow that out of body experience to start to dissolve because you're really starting to be the force that's making you centered within yourself. Um, but yeah, yeah, continue.
Yeah, and to not be foolish in having your own personal sense of hope. And I think that's something we should talk about now, where um, to mention our own process of hope. Um, for instance, I think for myself, it starts with, I think for everyone, it starts here, but for me, it starts with the pure sense of my self love. And I've always described and felt that my self love is like a dance. Even out in the world, I love to dance. I love to just joyously be like just in rapturous movement, with music, and just in the moment I feel the pulsations and the beat, and I feel like my compounding joy in that, and my self-love there is just seeing myself as such a joyous being, it's just such a wonder of an existence. And um that's usually where the hopelessness can start to come in, where it feels like a sense of anxiety, the sense of hopelessness that others won't see the same beauty that I do um, within myself, um, that it won't have impact in the world and others. Like I have no voice, I have um, just no connection to life and a greater sense of advancing into life. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Um, and from there, that sense of self love, I think, blossoms as I'm working with it. It blossoms into um, it blossoms into encouraging myself that I do. What I'll say is like seeing the love. Like I see the love in what you expressed to me, Mark, what you expressed about my beauty, about my value as a person, just the impact that I have on you, um, just the little things that I see with like my parents or um, other friends that I may have had in the past, and how they've expressed, just looking at those things and to not let them just fall flat and fall limp in your consciousness or in your heart, and really just try to have that meet and embrace and hug your own seedling of self-love, or whatever it may be, whatever it's starting off as. Um, and I think that starts to flourish and kind of gather its bearings and strengthen itself into what you bring to the world, like as an existence. And also to think about, it's important, or it has helped for me to see how much art and things that inspire me, things that have made me feel hopeful, uh, even in something as simple as songs that I love, movies that I love, that create like a little space of hope. You know that feeling, where you watch something that's very impactful to you, or you listen to something very impactful to you, you see something very impactful to you, and that is inspiring a sense of hope. The trick is, or the goal, I should say, is creating a lasting sense of that in your life, and to not feel like you're always searching for that in those moments. So how do you make it lasting? But yeah, I think those are even great places to start. Music and movies and art that help you see yourself in a greater light. Oh, what is that? Yeah. What about for you, Mark? What do you think is your process with hope?
Um, you know, for me, everything is about the foundation. You know, you can't do anything, you can't build anything, you can't, nothing's going to work if it doesn't have, a solid core, a solid foundation. Um, I think that that's incredibly important. So I think a lot of what I do is I look for where the weaknesses are, I look for what's wrong, I look for what's off. And, I wanted to sort of touch on things that I feel are just innately vulnerable. Um, and what this journey of being just like genuinely and truthfully hopeful has been for me. Of like, it's fascinating how so much of taking responsibility for yourself will give you so many waves of confusion. It'll make you feel uh like you're doing something, even though what you're doing is so positive. Like you're doing something that's going to make you unlovable, is going to make you unapproachable, you know. Um, and as I've spoken about this before, but what that really is I unconsciously understand that most of the world is filled with people who are codependent. Well, it's to varying degrees about different things, but what we've been talking about is essentially the difference between being codependent and and being hopeful and being independent and being hopeful. And when you're choosing to be independent with being hopeful, you might feel like, or with any aspect of your beingness, you might feel like you are energetically taking yourself off the market or something like that, as if you're no longer going to either A, be attracted to, or B, be attractive to that type of energy, that sort of mutually codependent energy that a lot of people operate on when it comes to their romantic life. And that's a great thing, you know? Don't have a fatalistic sort of scarcity mentality about it. There are other people who are independent sources of hope for themselves as well, who take their sense of self just as seriously, just as loudly and purely and potently as you do for yourself, as I do for myself. And it's been a lot to, as we talked about this earlier, as I was going down this rabbit hole of being a font of hope for myself, I started talking about the nature of dreaming and the nature of wishing and the nature of just this sort of cosmic starlight, this ability to express on a higher level that is constantly speaking this expansive rhythm of love, and how it touches how it touches me, and how it touches the world, and how it just sort of reaches out into life with so much beauty, and be always being tapped into that sense of hope, and how I sort of call that my personal starlight in a way. Um and how I've sort of talked about the nature of the romantic rapture, which is what every true lover wants. All the true romantics want that romantic rapture, and what they need to understand is that they are already that romantic rapture. You're your own romantic rapture within yourself. You don't need someone else to tell you that. You don't need you don't need a romantic partner to be that and have that. And while if there are any true romantics listening, I'm sure that might be jarring because it's something that we hold on to so hard. Um, but it's true. You are the reason you are having all of your feelings. There is no true love without you. So there's no true love without me. So all of this light and wonder and higher self expanse and just all this just true love that I am and all that I've been has been, of course, a reflection of me and not something for me to project on other people, which was the issue in the past. But it's all, it's self-referential. It's self-referential, and I am primary in that. I don't need to make that someone else. And that really is the core of all of this hope, like that, because and that alludes to what I was saying earlier on in this episode of like, oh, you get into a relationship and all of a sudden you're feeling so hopeful, you're feeling so expansive for life and for the future and all these things, and even when you're not in a relationship, you sort of meander and muse about being in a relationship and feeling so free within yourself and all of that. And that is, of course, part of the great illusion that you need to be in a relationship for life to move forward, for you to feel expansive. But you already are expansive. You already are like all this light and transformation and truth, and yet you're making essentially your capacity, your potential secondary, you know? And one of the things because escaping mental prisons is always like it's like finding out the code to a safe, and each mental prison you're escaping is a different code in a lot of situations. But you got to feel it out. And one of the things I would say is like, well, my future true wouldn't want me to be secondary. He wouldn't want me to feel secondary within myself, about my personal beauty and my personal truth. And that's just one of the many things that I would sort of do to get my consciousness to keep moving forward in the right direction. So, um, uh, I think, as I said earlier, it's important to look at what we're denying, these powerful things that we're actually really loudly hopeful for. That if we, you know, just the idea of these things, of receiving these things, just perhaps brings us to tears, perhaps just makes us incredibly emotional, and swells us up with life and light and an openness to life and to dreams, to just the full experience of our hearts and our minds and our bodies. Whatever those things are that you might be hopeful for is always worth being hopeful for. It's always worth thinking about. It's always worth putting in the forefront rather than in the background, because when you put it in the forefront, you're most importantly saying to yourself, actually, this is serious to me. Actually, if someone doesn't meet this criteria of something that means a whole lot to me, and it could be something like communication, like I'm really hopeful for somebody that makes me feel incredibly clear and like I make sense, and like they truly see me and understand me. That might be a really deep, I mean, and not even might, it should be something you're hopeful for, but that might be something you're, really hopeful for. And in that case, that's not something you should minimize. That's not something you should put on the back burner. That's not something you should be hopeless about. That's not something you should be frivolous about. It's not something that if you don't see that this person actually sucks at communication and whatever, then you just kind of ignore it and keep doing what? Chasing them for some quote unquote connection that you don't really have, because it is forced. And this is what we're talking about, false hope, being hopeless and therefore desperate, desperate for water, desperate for hope, and all you see is illusions of an oasis. And you just kind of project this illusion of an oasis onto a person, and they're not your oasis. They're not the person that you feel most free with. Somehow, with this person, you still feel lonely, that you still feel suffocated, you still feel exhausted, you feel unheard, you feel like things aren't expanding, things aren't moving. That doesn't make any sense. This is the aspect of like you're still grounded, you're still looking at reality, you're still looking at the truth, you're still looking at the vastness of what you feel, the vastness of who you are, while also having a profound focus on what you're hopeful for, because whatever those hopes are, they've been loud in the back of your mind or deep in your heart your whole fucking life. It's just been like that the whole time. And it's just been either A, getting louder, or B, getting more defined, or both. as time has gone on and as you've been listening and paying attention to what has worked and what hasn't and what's really just been going on. I think when I was younger, I felt like um, the things that I wanted were just like I'm asking for too much or something like that. When there's just no such thing. There's just no such thing. Your happiness in life is the most important thing. And in being primary, I have to sit back and ignore how many people minimize their own happiness and settle for, you know, very mediocre relationships and make them out to be more than what they are. I have to just look past it and whatever, 'cause it has nothing to do with me. I can't control it, whatever. But I think one of the most powerful things that anybody can start off doing is just acknowledging what they're in denial of, like letting go of that denial of hope. And the pain you might feel in thinking about something you're hopeful for, accept that pain, feel the pain of the fact that you might not have received it or the disappointment and understand that it's okay, but now you can really put that in the forefront. And because you're your primary source of hope, you are at the center of yourself in that regard, you're not desperate for someone to give you this, so therefore you're able to approach it and resonate and engage it when as it approaches you and as it enters your life from a place of dignity and a place of self-love. It's a self-loving action to choose what's best for you, to do what's best for you. um and if someone doesn't ignite light and passion, at least for me, speaking for myself. But if
Right.
someone doesn't ignite light and passion and freedom and truth and just a visceral um, sense of light and expansion in the blood, then for me, then I'm just not interested. It really is just so deep. It is so holy. It is so sacred, and it is so true. And none of this stuff that we've talked about is really what anybody is saying for the most part when they talk about hope. They like we've said, they treat hope like it's a hashtag. Hashtag self love. Like so just truly fuck off with that. It's so empty and it's so suffocating. It like takes away air because you hear so many people take away substance from things that are actually so meaningful, but they don't really go into depth or they don't mean it in a deep way. And spiritually, that, and so you're just, you're not getting any nourishment from that. So, yeah, like I said, um, that's been my main focus is to like look at these beautiful things that I can feel when I think about hope and things I could hope for in a romantic relationship or for the future, for whatever that means to me on a personal level, and to not deny them, to not allow them to feel painful, but instead to feel like a surge, like a feel a severity of like, absolutely, this is what I want. Absolutely. I don't give a fuck what anyone else is doing. I don't care how they're moving. I don't care about the vast, corrosive, choking emptiness that is, just destroying people on this planet, and people who choose to accept that and move with it and I don't care. I'm not internalizing that anymore. I'm not using the debauchery of other people to not be hopeful for my own life and just for within myself. I'm not using the external to distract me from my own happiness and from my own sense of hope and light and
Yeah.
freedom.
And I think
So
to piggyback everything that you've spoken on, it is like a constantly flexing muscle.
yeah,
So if you're feeling it, you may feel it in your isolation or in your aloneness of like, oh, you're feeling the beaming. You have like you feel the definition of what your hope is. You feel like so beautiful and just so powerful within yourself. You feel so purposeful within yourself. And like you see the whole tapestry of your inner universe and just everything's making sense. And then the moment you start engaging someone, whether new, old, um, and you're hit with the pangs of something, anything that try to hold you down. Personally, it's often I will feel, and Mark, I've said this like a broken record. How I often just feel like at the edge of the universe and just like it's like this extreme sense of dissociation and impossibility. If we're talking romantically or just interpersonally in general, like if I'm even speaking to someone just to connect on a friendly level amicably, um the hopelessness will just start to speak. Like, you're at the edge of the universe, you're not going to be able to connect, no one's going to see the vastness of you the same way you do, there's no point to it. They're just going to be another, like, set of strange eyes looking upon you like you're just some, literally just like some alien, you're just, you don't make sense in this world. And it's a lot of my hopelessness saying you're a foreigner, you don't make sense in this world, you don't make sense in your own fucking skin. um and kind of wanting a connection to be so beamingly perfect that it's validating me and all of that. It's validating my voice, just validating my anatomy. So when you feel yourself flexing those muscles as you're moving through life, they're really showing the areas that are still kind of weak, still need to um become robust and build their strength, that still need like a self-referential um knowledge or love or embrace of yourself, um, or just to see what's wrong, what's still, digging deeper and seeing what are these greater shockwaves that you may have taken from life or from relationships in the past, um, when engaging, um, I think mainly new situations, like just the future. This is the biggest thing. Hope connects you to the future in like it doesn't feel constrained, it doesn't feel, it's just like a dark tunnel or like a cold, just, yeah, just pointless tunnel, just full of concrete and mud and, um, ineptitude and everything. Hope is what connects you to the brightness of your future, the beauty of your future, and you walk confidently towards that, in every beat, every step. And that's how it should feel. And it's so funny because the words, they can be the guiding light, they can guide you there, but they often fail to the truest experience of it. And that's like anything. It's like being in love. How do you really describe that? How do you really describe the truth of what it's like to be in a true loving state, in a completely unabashed, bare skin, bearing all your naked consciousness, dreams, heart, and beingness in love. Um, and the wondrous experience of that, just the extra dimensional feeling of that. It's a similar thing with hope where you start to gain your own stride and you just like, whoa, it's like your aura is just painting this canvas of life. That's often the imagery that may come to mind for me, where it's like I'm painting like the watercolors that move with me are like painting the surroundings that I move with it. It's constantly held with me that I'm like painting the universe with my colors of hope, you know, or hope is giving me the opportunity to do that rather. Um, And that's what it should feel like. It should feel like the elements of you are just going towards what you truly want, unabashed, no compromise, no second guessing, no feeling foolish for being a hopeful being in life. Don't let anyone take that shit away from you. Don't let anyone take that shit away from you. Don't let anyone take that away from you. You being a hopeful person, with their sullen eyes. Um, you have that definition that's clear for you, and there will always be challenges from other people whose own hearts are sunken typically, and so they don't see the value in it. They want to reduce it to, as Marquis said, as a platitude or just some live, laugh, love nonsense. Some sticker on a bumper sticker on a car that you just slap on. Um, and don't let anyone take any value away from your journey. The self-knowing is that's why we keep stressing being primary, being self-referential, because it's yours. It's yours to claim. Don't let anyone take that away from you. So yeah. Um
Yeah.
I guess we're a little bit shy of an hour, but I think we pretty much touched on everything. My laptop is about to die, so
Okay.
um, I guess we should close here. But I think we touched on many things we wanted to, and then we'll always we have the opportunity to bring it up in future episodes if things come up. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, Mark, before we close?
No, no, just, of course, always reiterating with every single thing, big or small, within yourself and within life, you're always primary, you're never secondary. Uh, Not to your family, not to your mom, not to your dad, not to your siblings, not to your dog, you know, not in a relationship. You're never secondary. You're always primary because there is no sense of your life without you. Yeah, so always making that a point. I'm always going to make that a point in every single episode. I'm never going to let up on that because I don't think people understand how severe it is. Um, and I think being secondary gets extremely romanticized by romantics, and I feel very vicious towards that on a
Oh
personal
yes,
level.
being so
Yeah.
giving, being service oriented
Mm-hmm.
because you're willing to
Oh,
give
it's
your all.
overly giving,
Yeah.
overly just bending over backwards, overly trying so hard to heal other people, to be there for your romantic partner, and to be the source of light for people and all this. Meanwhile, no one's being a source of light for you. No one's pouring any light for you, and you're minimizing how important that is. Like, and this is what I see with other, true romantics, true lovers that I've come across in the past, other friends that I've made and whatever, it's like a consistent thing. And it's no, 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 you elevate and you leave this ridiculous cycle. So always be truly hopeful. Be hopeful for yourself. Be hopeful for your life, for your future, for your inner child. For the full light within you, and be hopeful with eyes wide open. Do not be hopeful with eyes closed. That will not get you anywhere. Be hopeful with eyes wide open. Always look at the truth. Always look at reality, and be severe about it. Be vicious about it. Be vigilant about it. Um, because I mean, true lovers, not talking about anybody else. True lovers are not dating to break up. They're not dating to just have another burn, and exit a relationship to have another lesson or have another therapy session. That's not what they're doing. True lovers are very serious. Like, like across the board, every time I come across one, very serious, you know, in ways that they didn't even know until they fell in love for the first time. So yeah, but if they're serious and if you really want to go the distance to really have what you really want, then you have to go the distance for yourself. You have to go the distance to be truly primary. So anyway,
Yeah. Beautiful.
much love and light as always.
I think I feel like we need like like a closing motto or statement to say for each podcast. Is that doing too much? Is that corny?
No, no, I don't
To
know
greater
right now.
heights.
Something to not to greater heights. Um, yeah, it's something we can talk about later.
Yeah, we'll workshop it outside of an episode.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you, Mark, for joining me for another wonderful episode. I never think we're going to make it to an hour, and yet we always do because we're always sure. But I love you, and I love you all.
Yeah, I love you too. And I'm always looking forward to just just being true and just pure expression moving forward. Um, and perhaps whatever connections burgeon from that moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and until next time.